teaching was to start out in the beginning when you do your rules and classroom setup. I have, from my favorite elementary experiences, the book called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. If you want an experience, read that to high school students and see how much fun you have. But it was a way to take off the pressure of pointing out that one student and turning it into something anonymous, because suddenly he was a character in a book, not particularly, even though the student in the class was literally that kid Alexander, but by reading the story to the class of high school students, then later saying, I want you to write a reflection on this book, even though it's primary. Some of you will be in classrooms and can read this to your students. Through their essays, quote unquote, or their personal thoughts, I was able to pinpoint that person. And our code was, when I greeted them at that door, and because they're Esau, they call me Missy. I love that. If they like you, they call me Missy. They would say, Missy, I'm having a very bad, terrible, horrible, no good. And I knew that that was the student, that already that trigger might have come up. They didn't tell me then, but I'd say, you're having an Alexander Day or a very good horrible day. And we had a special safe spot that student could go to in the back of the class for that. Maybe they had 10 minutes. That was it, and they'd get back with the regular routine. But by establishing those parameters first, that took the pressure off, because I could go with the rest of the students instead of spending the time with, why are you coming in here starting yesterday? Why did it? That will, well, we'll get into the next cycle. But start with that book. If you can find it, I think it's John Boyd or somebody played it in Boyd, but find it. It's Alexander and the very terrible, horrible, no good, bad day, but I have it on my shelf. And on rainy afternoons or whatever, read it, establish that corner, and when you can tell, as she said, right at that front door, Missy, Mr., I'm having an Alexander Day, then you already know. You can go to the next part of your time. So
okay, we have calm, we have the triggers, and what's the, thank you. Well, phase number 2, excellent.
Students, we're going to spell 3 words today. Can you spell cat?
C-T-A-A.
Can you spell dog?
D-O-G.
Okay. You guys work on some sentences with those 2 words, okay? Tamika, would you like to work separately in this table with your sentences?
I just don't understand the words.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll help you with them, and I'll stand right next to you, okay?
Okay.
Excellent. I love it. All right, so that's agitation. Can you tell us more about agitation?
It's just the student just not being distracted or staring at the window and not doing the student and so as a teacher, what you have to do is you have to just give them support, or like extra space if you need to work separately from other students. And if there's a teacher present, like an adult supervision, and they feel more comfortable in those things.
Yes.
And now when a student is in this agitation part of the cycle, they can react in different ways. Like for instance, some would become more loud or more noticeably agitated, and some would actually just come and almost be in themselves. Or like, yes, withdrawal, that's the word I was looking for.
That's exactly right. Exactly. We see both of them. So what did the teacher do that was really effective?
I noticed that the teacher did pull the student to the side, but it wasn't in a noticeable manner when the rest of the class did it. It was the rest of the class was working on some sort of group work, and then the student was pulled to the side in a way that wasn't embarrassing to the student.
Listen, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You're not with us. I need you to be doing this. I hate to say, we both yeah, totally different kind of set right there. Then you're going to be going up the acting out cycle. But because she got him busy and then said, hey, if you want to do this, how could you get enough into the role to know how you felt when she did that? What did you think?
I felt good because I didn't feel like the rest of the class was looking at me, but I still felt like the teacher was paying attention to me enough to notice that I needed extra help.
Yeah, exactly. I could see that by the way she responded to it. Now, you could have it could have escalated there, gone up, but I actually think the way that the teacher handled that, he would have gone back down. She may still be agitated, but she's hopefully not going to the next one. Anything else that the educator should do when you're in the agitation stage? It's basically emotional. She's having some kind of emotional reaction. Either anger, depression, worry, anxiety, frustration. Is Dad going to pick me up after school? I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going on, and you don't have time to do a counseling session usually. But you do have time to say, hey, let's do this. That made her feel special. It's an excellent example. Excellent. Okay, so we got calm, triggers, agitation. What's next?
Acceleration.
Okay. I like that enthusiasm.
We're going to take our test today. I'm sure you'll all do really great.
I don't see myself doing this.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
No, I'm not going to do the test.
Well, if you don't take the test, let's remember that we have consequences, and it means you will fail.
Why?
Because I have to make sure that you know the lesson, you learn the material, so I have to test you.
Can't you just take my word for it?
I can't. But while the rest of the class is studying, why don't you just come to the side with me for a minute?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we have to take the test because that's part of the school requirement, and this is how I test your knowledge, and every student has to apply to this rule, okay? Alright, well then, we can go downstairs then.
Okay. Excellent. That was intense. That is reality right there. What were you thinking? You responded to that. Like, oh my gosh, is that going to happen? Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. How many of you have seen something like that? He wasn't throwing, but he was not going to do it. No doubt.
Now, we didn't hear what was the last word that you said? Oh, you can go downstairs?
Yeah, like the principal's office. Or
Oh, okay. Okay, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah, very good.
That's very real. Very real. So, yeah, break it down.
You want to break it down?
Sure. So basically he was refusing to take the test. When he was told why he needed it, he started just asking questions, trying to pick a fight with her. But she tried to stay calm. She tried to take him out into private, but he didn't cooperate in this case. She tried to give him choices, remind him of consequences that were set beforehand.
All very good examples of what educators used to do. And they will. How did you feel?
Almost like panic. What am I gonna do?
Yes. Panic.
Child.
Yes. Panic is true.
That's a good one.
What else did you feel?
A little bit overwhelmed. Like I'm like, why aren't you listening to me? I don't know what to do anymore. But you can't
Confused.
Yeah.
Not sure what your next step is. Panic. But she didn't come across that way, did she? Her voice was intoned. It wasn't making, because he didn't go to peace. He was headed there. Now, how could she have done it differently that wouldn't have gone
She raised her voice.
Yes. Listen, you are going to.
And
That's a
you
good
go,
way to get your chair thrown.
especially with his friends around.
Yeah. Yes. That's when you enter a power struggle. You don't win on power struggles. Even if you think you do, you don't. As soon as you get into one, you have lost. You lost. So she didn't get into a power struggle. She reminded him she used several techniques, but she didn't get into the ultimate power struggle. The power struggle, he's going to win. So how did you feel?
Strange, honestly strange, because I'm not the kind of person that
Oh, good acting. Okay, so it felt strange. Could you get into it enough to know how, when she reacted the way she
Oh,
did?
yeah, I can tell that she was nervous, and I was able to take advantage of that.
All right.
They look for the weak spot.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't starting the cussing behind buttons. He was just not going to take the test. He knew some buttons to press next. Absolutely. If your kids know you, they know how to press them. So did you get calmer?
A little bit, but at that point I felt like he was going to ask to say, okay. So I had to just keep going to make sure I didn't feel bad about him.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. He can't lose face now in front of the class, right? That's the power struggle. He loses face if he lets her win. Okay, so if you don't start it, they start it. Okay, listen, you don't start with me. Teaching is such an incredible art. And this is the one, and don't be scared, it will happen. It will happen to you many, many times, and then you won't feel that pain. You'll just say, here we go again. How can I do it differently this time? Okay, so that was an excellent example. Acceleration. Anything else about acceleration? You notice, I like to be brief, speak calmly, respectfully. She did all that. And I think when she came over here, did she do this? Getting down to the eye level like that? That's good. That says, I mean business. I'm not a power struggle, but I'm with you here.
That was
We've just taken it from the class, from the big class to this is you and me. And are you really going to do this with me?
Yeah. That was a brave move because, as she said, there are
Yes.
times when some students, you better not do that. You will have a chair in your face or an arm that's broken because I do have someone who has done that. But the fact that, we're being honest, but the fact that you did what I call proximity, just the fact that you started moving towards him to say, guess what, this is my class, sort of thing, without being intimidating, without letting him keep face. But you still had to, and you just let him keep his face, even though we know that's not it. But later, as she said, after you've done this enough years, you will actually start the other side of the coin. Why is this student who's never done this doing this? Because then you'll find out that sometimes, as she said, it's those outside influences that are triggering, but you won't find that out really until experience, such as, like my student that did that scenario found out later that he was giving his medication to his cat, who was running up the curtains, and that was why he slipped. Yes, literally, he became aggressive as the sheep he did, and it was why at that moment I did, but later to find out that the reason why his Ritalin, he was giving it to his cat at home, and they couldn't figure out what the cat was doing with now become Mr. Antisocial. So try to find out what, in terms of just, it's not just all here it is. What is causing that?
Part of the intervention, one of them was to speak privately, which is what I was going for, and I'm sure that would be your opportunity to figure out if
Right.
there's a bathroom.
Exactly. So, but that was very.
And you might have to do it at a different time.
Yeah, definitely.
And you would definitely, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, peeps.
Basically, the triggers and agitation have gotten to the student to the point where they're going to act out, whether it's on themselves, they're going to start hitting themselves or hitting other students, screaming, having a tantrum, and they've hit that peak, or there's just nowhere to go but back down.
Yeah. And so now you're going into a different, when you get to acceleration, peak, and de-escalation, you've gone into safety. Now your big thing is, I have to make sure he or she is safe, I'm safe, and everyone else is safe. You kind of flip into the safety at this point. So, and they can destroy property, physically assault, lots of cussing, hyperventilating, tantrums. So sometimes you don't catch it until, what stage do you think you often, if you're unaware, and when you first start teaching, sometimes you don't catch all this. You might not catch them in the trigger. it might get to, what do you think?
I think they got maybe acceleration.
Yeah, acceleration. You're probably not, I mean, I remember one of my student teachers, I'm like, I had to film the class, or did you see what was happening back there? Because you're so busy with your lesson, you know, so you may miss the first couple of them, but you may keep, but you'll definitely notice it at peak. And so what are some of the things that the teacher does at peak?
They can isolate the student and remove them, and just put them in a safe spot for them, safe spot for the class, so that they can kind of de-escalate and come back down. You can send them to a principal, call the parent, if need be, refer them for counseling. I think that's pretty much about it.
Sometimes you evacuate the class instead of you know, and if it's, and that's when you get into real dangers if you're trying to, you know, and there's techniques for all that. I never did that. I don't touch. I'm not touching. If the kid's going berserk, I'm getting my other kids out of here because I don't want to get hurt. I never did get hurt in 20 years of teaching because I didn't do the hands-on. I'm going to take control of this. Yeah, the peak is fun. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If you do all these other things, you won't see that many of them. But and have a plan. And have a plan with another teacher. I can definitely say, go get go get Mr. Pope. Say to my runner, go get Mr. Pope. Or you guys need to do this. And we even talk to, if you almost always are going to have, if you're lucky, you have one in the class. You may have two or three. Sometimes you have to coach the class. You know, in a when they're not there and say, listen, you know, Daddy's not here today and I want to, you know, you can't say too much. You don't want to just say, if this ever happens, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. You know, if that child continually goes to peak, then you're going to have to make a plan, a safety plan, where you have a code with your administrator. There's all kinds of things you do. The main thing is to have a plan and know what you're going to do. Anything else with this one?
Yes, make a friend with the person next door.
Yeah.
Seriously, with the teacher next door for the plan, the safety plan for that reason. You as educators will always make plans for substitute teachers, but you forget that there will be times, as she said, where it is so severe, and this has happened, you have to clear the classroom so that they can have the entire classroom to do their steps. So when that happens, make a packet at the beginning of the year, one for your sub and one for your college safety plan. You fill it with day's work, whatever it is that you think you need, so that, and you teach them right from the beginning, what, you know, students, this may be the way, when I say green light, and they know, when I say green light, that means you have to get up and go to Mr. whoever it is room, and Mr. X knows that when these kids come filing in, he pulls that folder of work out, and that's what they do until the next session changes. Even though I have 6 classes, every one of my classes knew the green light plan. So, because in each class, you may have one, or even in the primary setting. This makes for a smooth transition. So when you say green light, they know. And if you have several people that know what green light means, they go, the work is already there, so there's none of this run back in the room, I forgot my book. They evacuate, just like a fire drill. And they're out until the coach is clear. So make a friend and do that at the beginning. If you haven't done it, do it soon, ASAP. And it will save you in the end. It's like a hurricane. You prepare before the storm comes. Okay, so Charley, safety plan.
Excellent job. Thank you. De-escalation.
Okay, class, it's time for your test. Here you go, Leanne, Peggy Lee, Susie Q, Ellie Mae, Mary Jane. You have about 10 minutes to take your test, and time starts now. Excuse me, sweetheart. Hey, Ellie Mae. Ellie Mae, is everything all right?
1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep.
Okay, You have a test you need to do. The whole class has to do this test, including you. If you need a few minutes, you can relax and then you can take this test. But we have to do this test, okay, hon? The whole class is doing this test. Excuse me, what are you doing? I know you are not looking at your neighbor's paper.
No,
Because that is not acceptable behavior.
I don't cheat, sir.
I saw you. I saw you looking at your neighbor's paper.
Maybe she should cover her paper.
Susie Q. You should not have to go through this again. What I want you to do is I want you to take your test, keep your eyes on your paper, and be good. That's it.
Alright, so after this whole kind of cycle has gone through, recovery at this point is really where maybe something's happened, maybe it hasn't, and we were kind of thinking maybe there's a little bit of almost embarrassment or reluctance now because something's happened, they don't really want to admit it, they don't want to work with anyone again right now, they just don't feel comfortable with that. And the idea is you want to get them back in with it, you want to, end any harsh feelings and just make everyone feel comfortable again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, excellent job.
Alright, so after this whole kind of cycle has gone through, recovery at this point is really where maybe something's happened, maybe it hasn't, and we're kind of thinking maybe there's a little bit of almost embarrassment or reluctance now because something's happened, they don't really want to admit it, they don't want to work with anyone again right now, they just don't feel comfortable with that. And the idea is you want to get them back in with it, you want to, end any harsh feelings and just make everyone feel comfortable.
Okay, excellent. Yep, gotta do recovery. So we know the 7 stages? Right? Okay, excellent, thank